Welcome to the Rebekah Panepinto Project. Today I'm very excited to host a dear friend named Tod Fetherling. For over 30 years, Tod has developed skills within healthcare information technology and analytics that he uses to help clients identify and analyze patterns to improve patient care outcomes at lower costs with accelerated revenue growth. He brings expertise in disease prediction, demographics, clustering, marketing, research, big data, and media to help healthcare organizations manage risk for patients and communities, all while enabling them to improve their quality of life. Tod currently serves as a managing director for Huron. Now, previous to this, he was the founder and chief data scientist of Perception Health, who joined Huron by acquisition just late last year. Fetherling's career has been a series of firsts within various different industry segments. He built one of the first public health portals for Hospital Corporation of America, created the first home health use rates, directed the first live surgery and first live birth on the internet, and now he is bringing the first cloud-based care management system to life. As you can see, Tod is a serial entrepreneur and a very interesting personality who's been a great friend and mentor throughout the years. Enjoy the show. Tod Fetherling, how are you?
I am great, Rebekah. How are you today?
Life is good. So good to see your smiling face.
So good to see you as well. We miss you here in Nashville.
Thank you. I still pop in every once in a while, see my people. There's no place like Nashville.
Absolutely. Music City, USA.
That's where you've spent really your whole career. So you have deep roots in Nashville. I love it.
Yes, born and bred. Hadn't made it very far in life. So.
Yeah. I think anybody who saw the introduction to this podcast know that's not true. So let's dive into your story. I think it's so intriguing. I mean, you've been a lot of places, done a lot of things, and I think made just a huge impact in the Nashville scene. But all of it starting actually, funny enough, where I had my first Nashville job as well at Hospital Corporation of America, the famous HCA. I selfishly went there because I just wanted the logo on my resume. And I checked that box and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go get into sales. But you really made a huge impact there. And you had this term that you used of your time there where you were an intrapreneur. Let's start chatting with your experiences there. What does an intrapreneur look like, and what was the impact you were able to make at HCA early in your career?
Yeah, so for me, an entrepreneur in that experience was CEO of the company, Rick Scott, now Senator Scott, asked me to run the internet department. This was 95 when the internet was still in its infancy. And so I had to literally create a product, the team, go to market strategy, the whole nine yards for a $25 billion corporation. And I remember today, and I still experience it a lot in my current work, where I did my first presentation of what this was going to look like. And so I was in front of probably 300 executives from across the country. And I said, take your mouse. And somebody raised their hand and goes, what's a mouse? Like, yes. This is 95. So I'm like, oh, back way up. And so out of that experience, really learned how to step-by-step move from ideation, idea to development, to technology, to product management, and really laid the groundwork for the rest of my entrepreneurial experiences.
So did you catch the bug at HCA, or was it already in there?
Well, as a kid, I used to wash windows downtown Springfield, Tennessee, and I'd get paid, like $10 to wash the front of a building. So I was probably always a little bit of an entrepreneur, even as a kid. But when I got to HCA, I always thought I'd be director of research for a large corporation. That was my number one goal coming out of college. That experience sort of told me that's not where I'm going to go. I need to be creating, building, and I really did catch the entrepreneurial bug there at HCA.
I love it. I have to say, I mean, kudos to HCA, even though they are this massive cruise ship moving along through the ocean. They have actually created a lot of entrepreneurs, and they have been a huge part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Nashville.
Yeah, and dating all the way back to Bovender and Frist and Massey, back in 1968, I think it was, when the company was first formed. It is like the entrepreneurial outgrowth. I mean, we have a whole family tree in Nashville of all of the companies who have spun out of that organization.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think they have, in some cases, enough self-awareness to be like, yeah, you can't breed that innovation within our ecosystem. So go do it over here. We'll fund you. We'll help you. And then in a few years, we'll buy you. And it's just built into this family tree.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entire ecosystem in and of itself.
So then what was the catalyst for the first venture out of HCA to be an entrepreneur? Was it an idea? Was it a partnership? What was like, okay, it's time to go out on my own?
The idea was a little bit of timing. So after HCA went to the health network, we created basically the first integrated cable television with internet activity for healthcare, and it hadn't existed before. And some pretty exciting opportunities came out of that. In that case, I kind of came in to run an organization. But once I left there, that's when I started Religion and really wanted to see if I could make an impact in healthcare through education and content. And so we had Health Teacher, which was a K through 12 health curriculum, and we had Discovery Hospital, which was a joint venture with Discovery Television. And so in a matter of 18 months, that venture really took off and grew to amazing heights.
Very cool. And then you've just continued to repeat company star after company star after company star. But I want to, for a minute, chat about, I think where I first became familiar with you and your name, and that was when you're at the Nashville Technology Council, which is almost more philanthropic than I think entrepreneurial. Tell us about that experience. How did you become CEO of the NTC, and what were you able to do while you were there?
That's maybe one of the funniest stories of my whole career, Rebekah. So I had sold Religion, the company we were just talking about with Health Teacher and Discovery. And I was literally at home working on a construction project. I was building an addition onto the house for about 3 months. And I got a phone call from the current CEO at the Tech Council, Jeff Constantine, and also from a board member and a recruiter all in the same day, like, hey, this job is perfect for you. You need to go do this. And so this was like on a Thursday afternoon, and I hadn't put on a suit in months, but I got all prettied up and went for an interview on Friday morning. And I found out later that I was number 6 out of the 5 candidates that they were looking at, and number 5 dropped out. So I sort of slid into that last slot. And so the conversation during the interviews went really well. And so I was driving home from Music Row and got a phone call and like, hey, you're our candidate. We want to make you an offer. And I was like, well, I didn't even think you liked me. It was one of those pretty funny moments in my career. And so took that job. And the interesting thing about the NTC in particular was before I even started, if you remember sort of the interactive group that was going on at the time, they brought me to bar camp, and literally all of the digerati in Nashville took over my presentation. They said, hey, let me tell you what we need. And out of that came a real resounding positive note around entrepreneurs. And at that time, we didn't have a front door for entrepreneurs in Nashville. And so the chamber was finishing up a study about entrepreneurship as part of their partnership 2020 goals. And so they asked me to, hey, take this study and go help us implement it. And so out of that came the Entrepreneur Center. So I was full-time at the Tech Council, also starting the Entrepreneur Center at the same time. My head was on fire. And it was really an exciting time in Nashville back in 2008. And a lot of that work led to kind of where the city is today.
Help bring Google to Nashville, if I remember correctly. That was part of one of the EC's first accomplishments, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we brought their sponsorship, and out of that, multiple companies out of Nashville wound up going to Google Days and presenting out on the West Coast, and that has become a great partnership between the EC, still going on today.
I like it. So made that huge impact, of which I later on was very happy to benefit from as well within the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Nashville. But then you got the bug again. And you had to start another company, which was Stratasan next, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. And it was one of the first companies at the EC, which was good because I co-located the NTC and the EC together at 105 Broadway, if you remember that address. And so we found an opportunity within some of the state data, health data opportunities that were out there, and started aggregating some of that information together. And that's what formed the basis of that company. And that company has really done well. I'd say the thing that I get most excited about is building sustainable businesses, the ones that stick around for years to come, because that's how you know you're contributing, whether it's to a city like through the Tech Council or health education like Health Teacher. Those things that stick around really make a big impact. Yeah,
and as far as I know, Stratasan still is operating today.
Yes, yeah, they're still going at it. In 2014, I wanted to go in a different direction than the company did, and that's what led to Perception Health and forming that company. I did take the whole weekend off though, to recharge
one weekend. Nice.
And get back started on Monday. So
sounds about right. Oh, I love it. Okay, so now Perception Health, where you spent the bulk of the last handful of years there, a lot of the time that again I knew you in Nashville. Yeah, that's awesome. Recent exit, so congratulations, and we can talk about that more in a minute, but let's talk about really the problems you solve for healthcare through Perception Health. And the theme of this show is, what does digital transformation mean in the context of your business? So I want to understand your perspective of Perception Health and the impact you guys have been able to make in healthcare by leveraging digital.
Yeah, it was the first day we started the company. We had a great view at 301 Plus Park of downtown Nashville. We didn't have a whiteboard, so literally wrote on a glass window what our strategy was. Chris McLaren, my co-founder, and I had envisioned that we could get really close to a real-time care command center. So think about looking at a dashboard and seeing yellow lights pop up throughout the day where patients are showing up at a healthcare facility. They need services. We need to figure out the payment, the authorization for those payments, the claims for those patients, and that whole life cycle of trying to reduce friction in healthcare between patient, provider, and payer. So that real-time care command center was the original vision. So in order to do it, we knew we had to look across a population. We needed to know who was at risk for showing up tomorrow, what diseases did we predict they were going to have, and then ultimately, what was the best provider network to give care to those patients. So we wrote down 3 terms: care, team, and code. And believe it or not, even after 8 years and now working with Huron, we're still trying to build all of those elements out. It may have been too big of a vision for us to, execute on ourselves. And so that's part of what led to the acquisition at Huron, as well as just the synergy that we have on the vision of impacting patient lives while we reduce costs. And that care transformation, I feel like I've been on this journey for 32 years trying to fix these problems, and they're still here today. And we're making progress, but it's never as fast as most of us entrepreneurs want it to happen. But there's also no magic wand for it either. There's no one single right answer. It's really important to remind yourself of that when you get frustrated, that not everybody is ready to see your vision and take action against it.
Yeah. Well, healthcare is a huge industry and just has all kinds of different workflow and operational inefficiencies and issues that I think there definitely is a lot of room for growth to solve those problems. But You've talked about in the past your passion for healthcare operating model transformation. And then specifically with the part of it at Perception Health that you focused on, how do you maintain that focus? Like, how do you not try to eat the whole elephant at once and instead be like, we're going to be the best in the world at this, and we're going to solve this one problem, and then make sure obviously you have metrics against that to be able to call it a success at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think the only way to not get frustrated is to really do it community by community, facility by facility. So we have shown where we can go into a hospital, implement our growth strategies, implement our cost reduction strategies, and use the same data set across both of those problems. And that's really where there's some magic, where you have the ability to visualize what a patient journey looks like, where there were opportunities for improvement. And then tomorrow, that same patient journey actually is improved and goes better the next time around. And so doing that repeatedly, especially like in areas of lung cancer, where we've impacted hundreds of patients that got screened, got care, and had lung cancer and didn't know they had lung cancer. Those are the impactful stories that get me energized every day to get up and do what I do.
So are you intentional about going to touch and feel this and make sure you see that, I'm going to call it end user, but I mean, it's even patient experiences from what you're impacting?
Yeah, and this will take us all the way back 25 years ago at HCA. So early websites that we were building and doing physician chats on AOL impacted lives. I used to get emails from people all the time, like, I had no idea I had X, Y, and Z going on. I listened to this physician chat on AOL. I went and talked to my doctor about it. Sure enough, it led to a diagnosis. I remember one lady that had fibromyalgia and suffered for years and didn't really know what was going on with her body. And because of this physician expert said, if you're having problems with X, Y, and Z, think about this and, go get the following test and see if it's impacting you. And sure enough, it did. And, I keep some of those emails from people that said, this changed my life, this content, this service, really impacted my life. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that's the fuel that can keep you going in these situations. Like, you're obviously extremely passionate about healthcare, but I feel like when there's technology as part of it, you forget about that patient experience. You forget about the real impact you're making. Whereas like my sister's a nurse at Vanderbilt. She sees it firsthand every day, patient care, helping people to get healthy. You can lose that in tech. So the fact that you are intentional about staying close to that, keeping the emails, I think that's all what just fuels the fire and brings more purpose to your business. So
yeah, and we even set some goals this year to impact 50,000 lives. And so cool. We're tracking and measuring the patients that we predict are going to have these disease states, and then seeing that they actually got the care that they needed.
That's very cool. So then, new partnership with Huron. Can you give us a little bit of the genesis of how that relationship kind of came to be? I know it's a very close working partnership, which is what made sense for you guys to join forces, but we'd love a little bit the background of how you guys came together.
Yeah, almost 4 years ago, we did our first project together. Project worked out really, really well. Client was super happy. Huron was happy. We were happy. It was just that win-win-win situation. And we kept in touch, kept working towards different client opportunities. But really in 2021, our partnership really grew. We did almost 20-something projects last year together across the country. And many of these projects were big, significant projects at Huron. And we were playing a data role in the back end to organize data, look through the data and provide insights as to what we saw going on in their communities. And then as we, kept repeating this formula for success, it became, apparent that there's a greater opportunity for a tighter partnership, and we talked through what made sense, and eventually we settled on acquisition to fold our whole team in. And it was really about the capabilities that we can bring to Huron. And for them, it's about scale. So how do we scale up our vision that we had in that very first moment of starting the company, and get to that end state where we have a healthcare system that is transforming how we think about care today, so that you have the highest quality outcome at the lowest possible cost. And it's only if we get to that state that all of us can call it a done day.
Awesome. And now you're an intrapreneur again. I love that. You guys are still all working towards the same goal together, and I'm sure you'll be off to your next adventure at some point. But for now, it seems like the missions are still so well aligned that you guys are just continuing to move and serve customers like you have been for the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think we have an opportunity with Huron to really be more curious and get more stuff done. Those were the two cultural impacts that our company had, and that curiosity is shared. I've met so many smart people at Huron over the last 30 days that I didn't know before. We've gone from like 3 or 4 people interacting to 500 people interacting in 30 days. So it's been really exciting. At the same time, there are projects and opportunities, both with clients and internal, where we can contribute some of our knowledge base to solving those problems. And so I think I will get a lot of opportunities to be entrepreneurial minded and look for ways to impact patient lives through the customers that we work with.
It's very cool. And anytime there's, I feel like I'm gonna call it a transition of power, for lack of a better term, but there's just a shift in how your teams are going to work together. And there's obviously a business component to it all. A key part of it, which I'm sure you learned through all your different entrepreneurial adventures, is taking care of your people and retaining talent, taking care of your talent. Can you talk a little bit about things you've learned, maybe the more painful lessons or the better lessons of how you keep your good people, how you keep them engaged, how you keep them curious, and just continue to have that innovation culture day in and day out?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of consistent themes related to that. To your point, our whole team came over, which has been exciting. So we were all just meeting together face to face on Tuesday at the Technology Council. We still rent space back from there, so talk about full circle coming around. But one of the things that one of the employees said is, I love that you are constantly challenging us to think about a new project, to have ownership in and do R&D and see it all the way through to the end. Well, what happens out of that is people have to go back and get some education. They either have to watch podcasts like this, they have to go do some physical in classroom training at a Belmont or Vanderbilt, and but we encourage that and support that. And I think that at the end of the day, it's about the employees and the customers and that human relationship that comes through with that. And as long as people know we're trying to solve these problems together, things work out pretty well.
I think if you can give them a line of sight to that kind of frontline experience we were talking about earlier, of like how you're actually impacting healthcare and patients, that would be a lot more fuel to the fire for these folks who maybe just think they're only writing code some days and don't really get to see it all full circle. And so if there's ways that you can keep these folks really close to the overall impact you're making in healthcare, that would be, I think, a great engagement tool.
Well, and I'll tell you a little funny story. So one of our clients, one of our favorite clients we love to talk to every week, they call us data ninjas. And so they eventually want to become ninjas. Well, our service awards that we just introduced at our annual event with all the employees, we gave out ninja swords, real swords, kind of scary. but real swords to represent that service. And when you stick around 5, 7, 8 years at a company, like the Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, you become an expert, right? And so we've got people on our team right now that know as much about infusion therapy as anybody in the country, because we're looking at so much data across so many different levels of an organization.
That's very cool. They're linchpins of the industry. That's very cool. Yes. Those are hard people to get and keep, though. So I commend you for putting them first and doing things like the awards to make sure they feel fully appreciated and stay engaged.
Yeah, and I probably half of my delivery team that I manage have all come through our internship program, who have now been here 5 and 6 years. So they started off as interns, spent the summer with us. We gave them a project. I treat internships probably different than a lot of people. I want them to own something that is not critical, meaning if it doesn't get done, it's not going to hurt the organization, but it's something that will contribute to our success and give them ownership of that. And they have to deliver it and present on it at the end of their internship back to the company of what they learned. And so our team has come through that program, and we've invested in their growth. And to your point, some of them are truly leaders in the organization, or leaders in Nashville today, and have an amazing career path ahead of them.
Very cool. So when you're bringing in an intern, or maybe even an employee that's maybe more senior in their career, is it personality you're looking at? Is it skill set you're looking at? Character traits, values? Like what helps you find these people that then stick with you for 6, 7, 8 years, and maybe even, I don't know if this has happened in your case, but go with you from company to company?
Yeah, there's several people who work for me today that I've worked they've worked for me at previous companies, one like 4 different companies. So he's a glutton for punishment. So I think there's 2 things that I would say. One is I look for people who get shit done and have a lot of curiosity. That magic between those 2 things, that you're getting accomplishments, but at the same time, always trying to look around the curve, right? And then the other thing, Todd Charest, TC on our team uses a term that I like a lot, which is we look for people who are hungry, humble, and smart. When we get that combination together, they fit in real well with our team. It's almost like magic. And then the last thing is really Dungeons and Dragons. So, our whole team has these massive outings where everyone gets together and they have a good time and play D&D. And I love that sort of subculture that we have as well at the company.
That's really cool. I love that you've had these folks stay with you, A, for a long time, or B, throughout different companies. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So now, more on the entrepreneurial vein, is there a time that you can think of where you took your biggest risk, or maybe learned the most painful lesson throughout these different experiences that you maybe hope you never repeat again, but it was also career changing?
Wow, there's actually been a couple. I'll talk about a really exciting one, and then I'll talk about a bad one, because you always learn. I always learn from both experiences. So the live birth that we did at the Health Network, Liz Poole came to me one day while I was literally there for about a month, and she goes, "Hey, I think we ought to do a live birth on television." Of course, I'm like, "You're crazy. We'll never get this done." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." So she's like, "Great. Let's go talk to Dr. Walt Larimore." He was a family practitioner in Orlando. And we talked to him, and he goes, "Hey, that's a great educational opportunity. There is so much mystery around first childbirth and all of that." And so it really fit well into our mission and what we were trying to do. So as a result, we had not 1, but 3 women volunteer to have their birth online. So, and you'll appreciate this from your marketing background. I sent out a press release for about $500, and we wound up on ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN. Susan Candiotti, who's like an awesome reporter, was literally on my shoulder the whole day. And so the internet in '98, we did 1.4 million video streams in 4 hours. That was before YouTube, right? So the internet at that point was still a little jerky, and we used real networks to produce that event on. And I just remember answering, like, once again, what's a mouth, trying to explain how video streaming works to people who don't understand how the internet works. So it was, it was a pretty interesting experience.
Sounds like, though risky, successful though.
Risky and highly successful. Fox Television came and started knocking on our door about 30 days later, and we wound up selling the business to Fox and WebMD, and it was truly a great exit for everybody involved.
That's very cool.
And then, on the not great side, I was asked to take over an organization in 2008, and when I got there, once again, the vision that everyone, board members, were asking me to execute wasn't consistent with the talent that was at the company. And so I had to make a harsh decision to basically get rid of half of my team about a month and a half into the job. And that was very scary because A, I didn't know who was going to do the work. B, it was a public profile. So lots of people are like, what the hell's going on? But I'm like, just hang with me. Let's get through the brand. Let's execute on our vision. And so it wound up accelerating. It's grown to incredible heights now. There's 20 staff members now, and lots of great growth, lots of big impact in the city. And so there is a time when you have to come back and prune a little bit so that you can get more growth. It's always painful on what you just said, which is people are the most important part of the organization. But at times, I do think you have to look to a larger vision, and good to great all taught us, like, who needs to be on the bus and what seat do you need to be in. And that's a really great exercise that all organizations ought to go through sooner rather than later.
Yeah, or else they're forced to. So recent news that comes to mind is Peloton.
Oh yeah.
Have you been keeping tabs on their crazy?
I have, I actually watched the television show that sort of prompted some of this craziness, and I'm like, whoa, that is not good. And sure enough, like, there's been this cascading impact, and then you find out all this other stuff going on, and crazy.
I didn't even know they had as many employees as they let go to start.
Right.
So that was crazy. And yeah, it's interesting to see a company have such highs and very fast lows.
Yeah, and the media impacts a lot of business strategy, and so the importance of being socially aware right now is probably at an all-time high.
Oh, I absolutely agree. So let's talk about Tod Fetherling when he's not working, which I don't think is very often, but like, you just have a ridiculous amount of interest and energy. And I feel like side hustle as much as people that don't have as demanding of day jobs. So much so that, like, I always thought it was interesting. At one point you owned the Nashville Broadway downtown Wi-Fi. Like, that's so great. You could be down on Broadway drinking beers, and Tod Fetherling put some Wi-Fi in place for your phone. I just think that's great.
Well, and I was at the Tech Council at the time. I was in a meeting in the West Coast, and this company, super young workforce, was going through a list of requirements, and Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi downtown was one of their requirements. And
oh, wow.
Ralph and Janet look at me and like, hey, can you do something about that? And I'm like, sure, no problem. Have no idea like what I'm going to do. So I called Google because of our partnership. They use Meraki, which were these great radios. And so I put one up on top of the Commerce building, which was where the Chamber of Commerce was, and lit up Broadway and put repeaters out. And sure enough, in the first, month, like traffic went crazy, right? And so then we're like, oh, there's probably a business opportunity here. Eventually, the tech council didn't want to be climbing towers like I did when I was at the tech council, but I got to see a lot of great views of Nashville that nobody else gets to see.
Cool.
Like up in the Bridgestone Tower is an awesome view down Broadway, by the way. A little scary getting up there, but that's where one of the radios is today. I bought it from the tech council, and then subsequently I sold that business to Josh Drummond over at Bedrock, and he runs it today. The CVB wound up being our sole sponsor of the program, and so you'll find this hilarious as well. But they asked us for the last 3 or 4 years to also do New Year's Eve events that moved over to the farmers market, and so we put the mesh network over at the farmers market as well for New Year's Eve.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's
the only problem is you got to get up at 6 a.m. and get your radios down before they start breaking everything down. And the day it was 8 degrees, that was not much fun.
No. Yeah, you'll remember that one. What are some of the other side hustles maybe that people would be surprised to know about?
Well, you're probably going to be surprised at this next answer, but right now I'm serving as the president of Tennessee Hymns, and that's sort of
very cool.
My volunteer activities to give back to the community. And then I've also been helping the bishop and our priest at church launch a new Catholic church over in Nolensville that Father Anthony will be managing that parish over there. And so those are sort of the things that I do to keep myself connected back to the community right now. And then, 100% focused on helping Huron grow this care transformation business, which I think is going to impact, millions of lives across the country.
Is there an element of self-care and where you have to stop and like watch your health, watch your sleep, watch your routine, and make sure that you can like knock it out of the park with all these things? Is there like a very regimented system that you follow day in and day out?
I do. I start every morning with a power hour, is what I call it. Get up, read the Bible, have some spiritual connectivity, try to get some exercise in. I've never sort of needed a whole lot of rest or sleep. I'm starting to learn more about sleep as I get a little older. So if I can get 6.5, 7 hours of sleep, that's pretty awesome. And so I think where it comes down to is what I call time shifting and sort of the natural cadence. Like I am super focused, organized, and like to work from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. At 10 a.m. I need a little bit of a break, right? So whether that's getting up and taking a walk around the neighborhood, which I think has been the most awesome thing about COVID. Like people in my neighborhood never used to walk. Over the last 2 years, everybody's walking. Like there are people out all the time, day and night now, walking. And so I think in some regards, people have rediscovered their neighborhoods because we've spent a lot more time at home over the last 2 years. And then I think, the other interesting thing is all of the work from home, I think is going to create a whole new, and I don't even know what to call it or what it looks like, but there's going to be a whole new connective tissue that communities and individuals have to form in this post-COVID world.
Oh, I totally agree. But I think people have done a good job, at least my experience with the companies that I've worked for through the season, of giving you space to breathe and take a break and like not just overkill it. Like granted, you're more available now and I think we are more productive and we work more, but there's also been like mental health days and good ways to like just take a break, shift your focus.
Yeah. Well, and going back to Huron, one thing I really love about what they do for employees and giving back, they have a whole eye care initiative. which is volunteering in your community. So many of our team members about 2 weeks ago went to Second Harvest Food Bank in the freezer and reorganized the food. And that volunteer time is acceptable. Like, we want you to be involved in your communities and do the things that you do. And I think that's really a great step by Huron to give room to people, not only for mental health days, but also giving back. I've learned so much from giving back to the community over the years. I don't think I'd be where I am today if it wasn't some of the volunteer activities at Safe Haven, the Technology Council, Tennessee Hymns, et cetera.
I think that's what's so special about Nashville, is that there's a culture of lots of leaders doing that and participating and, showing the way for their team, their employees to also do the same. And so that's something super special and near and dear to my heart about Nashville. And like, if we could replicate that all over the world, I think it would be a different place.
Yeah, I think that giving back in the collaboration that I think stems out of the songwriter collaboration that goes on in this town permeates all through business as well. And it does make Nashville a bit unique.
One of my favorite places. So Todd, I have one final question for you. I feel like some of the answer might have been interlaced throughout our conversation because it's just who you are. But if you could say one principle that has defined your success in business, what would it be?
One principle. I think it's probably going to be get shit done. I just focus every day on tactically doing what I need to do to get through that day and trying to live more in the moment. We've sort of given 24 hours a day, and if we think about what we can do today, and it's a little less daunting to have to think about what I got to do 5 years from now. I think that's sort of a constant. And then I know you only asked for one, but I would say number two would be learning. It's just so important to constantly, especially in data and healthcare, things are moving so fast. If you're not keeping up with all of the information and the new processes, it gets daunting to try to catch up.
Oh, I totally would agree. On principle number one, I have a part two question to it though, because I think the one barrier for me to every day getting my whole to-do list accomplished can be like emotions and distractions. So how does that come into play, especially when you're managing a team, when maybe you just don't feel it, or it's just like, it's not your day? Do you push through that, or is there ways that you figured out how to balance, maybe taking it into bite-sized pieces?
So I push through it, but to get there, I go for a long walk, a hike, a run, or something. I got to get out into nature. And if I had one of those days this week where my energy was low following a big high day, right? Tuesday with all the team, we're all excited. We got all this stuff going on. I'm so jazzed up. But as an introvert, I need a little downtime after that. Like after 8 hours with a lot of people, like I'm sucked dry and got to recharge my battery. So I got up first thing, got out, got some exercise, and all of a sudden, by 10 o'clock, I'm ready to go again. And so I think you hit on a really important point, which is to know yourself. And some people probably think it's ballyhooey of like knowing your circadian rhythms. Like after being at this for 20 years in the entrepreneurial space, I know pretty well where my limits are and where they're not. I push those limits occasionally, and that's probably not healthy. But I also know, I'm not at a good mental place to create new things today. So I need to step back and go get some work done that I need to follow up, do correspondence and those kinds of things. And then when that energy level does come back, then that's the time to go create new things and push to the edge.
That's good. Yeah, that's what I've noticed is when there's too much forcing the situation, the quality just changes. So for me, it's better to shift my focus, or yes, going to do something active is huge, and find when I'm back in that space. But it's protecting that space and making sure that when you have that next available space, you've prioritized then what you wanted to accomplish that maybe didn't happen based on the state you were in at that time.
That's a really good point.
Well, you're fabulous, Tod. This was so much fun. Thanks for being on the show.
Yes, I wish we were over a glass of wine in New York City, but hey, soon. So
When it warms up, you are more than welcome.
all right, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your week. We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.